We're going to go to questions from the audience in just a moment. I'm just going to pick up on that before we do, though. One elephant in the room we haven't mentioned in this green race is the U.S., of course. And I'd be curious to hear from the panel how the collapse in U.S. climate legislation, at least for some time now, has affected your views of low-carbon opportunities in the U.S. Are you sending your dollars elsewhere? Do you still think there's opportunity in the U.S.? Is what's happening at the state level giving you some encouragement? Any thoughts on that?
Let's start.
Yeah.
Well, I just came in from Berkeley, and I heard President Obama's advisor on renewable energy, and the picture he painted was one of really optimism, and the famous Silicon Valley innovation, and it's moving away from the chips to from microchips to microwatts, and it was a bit puzzling given all that. I mean, why aren't these guys then going ahead on the international forum and sticking their neck out? So. But again, my overall impression was that at some point, there are a large number of groups within the United States who believe in the green path, and they would succeed in conveying these messages to some parts of the country who think otherwise.
Yes, Barb.
I think one example that is interesting from the US and what we are doing there, we just have won about a month ago a very big project, which is an engineering project in Texas, where for the first time we will start and test our carbon capture storage technology. And this is really great because, as you know, many countries have lots of coal. So now you can shift to other means of energy media. But of course, if the carbon capture storage technology works, that would be an interesting solution. So we just started that a month ago in Texas, and it's basically a German technology that we now apply jointly with engineers in Texas, and I'm sure it will give some promising results on that end.
That's very encouraging. Now let me turn it over to the audience. Just raise your hands up for questions. I'll group 3 at a time, put them to the panel, and then come back. And also for Spanish speakers, if you'd prefer to ask your question in Spanish, we do have translation available. So please just put your hands up and microphones will come. Alex there. And please also just state your name and your organization as well.
Alex McGilvery from Accountability, working on climate competitiveness, or the green race. And I was interested to hear from Daniel, but also from the rest of the panel, what are the big opportunities for Mexican businesses in the green race that's coming up? And we've heard some examples from Grupo Bimbo, but I'd like to hear about some other sectors and some other big opportunities for Mexican companies.
Well, I believe that there's a huge opportunity, at least for what I see in the energy sector. One is, and that's because our energy sector is publicly owned. So the inefficiencies that we have on our system are important, and that brings a gap for private sector to become more efficient in its cost of energy. So what we are seeing now is that there are a lot of opportunities on the renewable side at least in the eolical part, in the southern part of Mexico, and that, given the circumstances where it's placed, the Ventosa area in Oaxaca, can bring a lot of new investment. So that's one area, and one that we think that most of the blocks that have been slowing the process are now in the process of speeding up. On the other side, I think that there are a lot of opportunities also to help Pemex become much more energy efficient. And one aspect of that is cogeneration. Cogeneration in Pemex could probably supply 5 to 10% of the energy use of the country, but it's still in its infancy. And there we need to press for more changes there to allow the company to free itself from a lot of rules that are not helping to become that part more efficient. But I would sense that beyond the energy side, and Secretary Elvira also mentioned the government, it's doing a lot of projects that are substantial in scale. There are a lot of opportunities in all areas, and I think that the mood in the private sector in Mexico is a positive one towards sustainability, and we are probably more interested in that than what I see in other countries from surveys that have been presented.
Barbara, did you want to come in
Yes.
on Mexico?
Yeah, I fully agree with Daniel. Clearly on energy, I mean, one area is renewables. We're already active in a number of projects, but there are other areas. Also think of solar thermal. I mean, lots of sun here, how to use that. So energy, I think, is a big, big area. And just sitting together with, our engineers and exploring the opportunities, I think could make a lot of sense. Building, green buildings, I think here, huge opportunities, I think still not yet really being rolled out, and typically average 30% of energy efficiency when you really apply a full scale of green building technologies. So I think also to think any new building that is being constructed in this country should be going in that direction, and I do think here this is a very, very big opportunity for Mexico, also to be a showcase in, of course, your continent.
We've got a cluster of 3 questions over here, so perhaps actually we could take all 3 and then we'll bring them to the panel. Over here, and then over here, the lady in the red scarf, and then next to her, and then in the back.
Hi, sorry. I'm Nicole Peel-Malter from Akamai Technologies from the USA. Apologies on behalf of the US. I think the central thesis is a great one, the question anyway, about legally binding global climate treaty. I didn't actually hear a clear answer from the panel, but I think there was a point in terms of the economic externality of carbon, and that until there's a price of carbon, until it's a true cost to businesses, and I think I hear a lot of businesses asking for governments to put a price on carbon, whether that be a carbon tax or through carbon trading policy, that until that happens, really we can't have a level playing field with the subsidies to the fossil fuel industry, and with, we do have subsidies for renewable energy technologies today, but until there is a cost to spewing carbon into the atmosphere,
Right.
it won't be a level playing field.
So do we have a price on, do we need a price on carbon? The lady in the red scarf?
Isabel Studer from the Tecnológico de Monterrey. I think it's a follow-up to that question. We seem to be in a catch-22 situation in which there is an economic crisis. The public opinion does not seem to be up to really looking at climate change as a critical issue. And although energy security might be an issue, in the present context, the political situation really is not up to, taking these very bold actions that are needed to introduce a price to carbon. And I think the catch-22 situation is that we need to have constituencies that actually have a demand for the introduction of these policies that are very much required, so that in Copenhagen and in Cancun and then in South Africa, the negotiators could actually, say there is a public demand for actually us undertaking some action. So my specific question is, if you were, as business people, to have one important action at the global negotiations in Cancun, one issue that you would request as an important constituency to the governments, what would that be?
Great, thank you. And the gentleman next to her, and then we'll come back to the panel. And if we could keep them as questions as much rather than statements. Thank you.
My name is Helmi Abulesha. I'm from Egypt, from an organic farming and food producing organization. And my question is to Mr. Conzelmann. Also, I agree to most of what you said about too low energy prices and all these kind of things. I have one question I either didn't understand or I disagree. It is the question that you said agriculture and food are not major emitters. And therefore we are not, I think we are major emitters, but we are also a major part of the solution. And this is why I expect from Cancun that agriculture is put on the agenda of the climate treaty, and millions of farmers in the world are incentivized for the right behavior. So on this part, I didn't understand, and I have a question.
Thank you. So why don't we'll first maybe let Klaus clarify his views on that question, and then come to the panel on these questions of do we need a carbon price and how do we build the popular support.
Right, yeah,
Klaus.
thanks very much, Eric, and thanks very much for the follow-up question, because obviously it was very brief, so I wasn't able to properly explain what I meant. What I meant is that the food manufacturing sector, the food processing sector, is not a major emitter of CO2 as a manufacturing side. For example, in Europe, we have more than 100 factories, but only about 20 of them are big enough to just make the threshold of the European trading scheme, which we, by the way, as answer to the other question, believe in terms of putting a price on carbon, a trading scheme, a cap and trade trading scheme is probably superior to a carbon tax, because we had reasonably good experience with that. Obviously, you're absolutely right on the agricultural sector. That indeed is a major emitter, not directly of CO2, but more indirectly the other greenhouse gases, methane, nitrous oxide, and especially all the land use changes and so on. That until now, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending again on what lobby side you are on, obviously, has not really been a part of the process to reach a climate treaty. So again, I would absolutely agree with you there that over time, and it's too early for Cancun, because Cancun is so full of other issues that need probably to be resolved before, but that over time we need clearly also to address the greenhouse gas emissions stemming from agriculture, which again, and you already alluded to the solutions, we clearly believe that a highly efficient agricultural food processing system can feed the world much more sustainably than any other more romantic, small-scale, organic, whatever form of agriculture or home preparation of food actually could be.